At the end of this story, you'll understand why she never had to worry about money again, and why the phrase that changed everything has only 7 words. But let me tell you something that will shock you. Marina was 34 years old, a mother of 2 young children, and a bank account that screamed despair every single day. You know that feeling? When you open your statement and get that icy chill in your gut? That's exactly what she lived through. Every single day, she'd tried everything. Louise Hay's affirmations, Joe Dispenza's visualizations, abundance rituals that flooded Instagram. Nothing worked. Absolutely nothing. And you know what's worse? Each failed technique made her feel dumber. Like the problem was her. Like she wasn't worthy of prosperity. Have you ever felt that? That frustration of trying, and nothing changing. Well, that's exactly where our story gets interesting. Marina discovered something that 99% of people don't know about Florence Scovel Shinn, a detail so specific it would change her life forever. Florence wasn't just another self-help author from the 1920s. She was different, very different. While others talked theory, Florence spoke of results. Results that could be measured, touched, deposited in the bank. And there was a single phrase, that she used in a completely different way than you've ever seen. But before I tell you what that phrase is, I need you to understand we've lost what really worked. It's like someone gave you a cake recipe, but forgot to tell you the oven temperature. You can have all the right ingredients, you can follow every step, but if the temperature is wrong, the cake won't rise. And that's what happened with Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings. They took her words, copied the techniques, but lost the most important element of all. Marina discovered this by chance, on a Thursday afternoon, when she'd given up on everything, when she no longer believed in miracles. She was in a used bookstore, looking for anything that cost less than $10, because that's all she had. And there, on a dusty shelf, she found it. It wasn't a famous book by Florence. It was something rare, very rare, an original 1925 edition with handwritten notes in the margins. The pages were yellowed with age. The cover was worn. But the words seemed to pulse with life of their own. Notes from someone who had applied the methods. Notes showing exactly how Florence wanted it done, with dates, with results, with real proof. Marina opened to the first page and saw a dedication to Sarah, who transformed despair into abundance by following every word of this work. With love and eternal gratitude, 1926. Sarah had documented her entire journey in the margins, month by month, dollar by dollar, miracle after miracle. And there on page 47 was the phrase. But it wasn't just the phrase. It was the context. It was the method. It was the secret everyone forgot. Marina read it once, twice, 3 times. Something happened inside her. Like a key had been turned. Like a door that had been locked for years, finally opened. Have you ever felt that? When something makes sense in a way you can't explain? She bought the book, went home, and that same night, she started applying it. Not the way everyone teaches it today, but the original way. The way Florence really intended. And this is where the story becomes impossible to believe. On the 3rd day, she received a phone call, a freelance job, unexpected, $800. The client explained that she had found Marina's business card in a drawer, didn't remember where she'd gotten it, but felt a strong intuition to call that very day. On the 7th day, a project she had submitted months ago and had already forgotten was approved. $2,400. The client said the project had gotten lost in the system. But that week, for some reason, it resurfaced on the right desk at the right time. On the 15th day, a proposal for a partnership in a company, something she would never have imagined. A businessman she had met years ago at an event she almost didn't attend, called out of the blue, said Marina had appeared in his thoughts and that he had a proposal for her. In 2 months, $47,000 from 6 different sources. 6 opportunities that appeared out of nowhere. 6 coincidences impossible to explain. In 6 months, $200,000. And it wasn't just money. It was a new life, a new identity, a new reality. And it wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. It was something much deeper happening. Marina had discovered that Florence's phrase wasn't just words. It was a technology. A mental technology that activated something specific in the brain. And science today can explain exactly why. Dr. Joe Dispenza calls this heart coherence. The heart produces an electromagnetic field 60 times larger than the brain. When you synchronize emotion and intention, this field expands exponentially. Dr. Bruce Lipton calls it subconscious reprogramming. He discovered that 95% of our thoughts are subconscious. And that between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m., the barrier between conscious and subconscious becomes thinner. Neuroscientists call it targeted neuroplasticity. Dr. Rick Hansen proved that repeated thoughts with intense emotion literally restructure neural circuits, create new networks, new possibilities. But Florence Scovel Shinn, 100 years before all this science, called it scientific prayer. She intuited what science took decades to prove, that there is a specific frequency where miracles become mathematics, and she knew something that took science 100 years to prove. That there is a specific way to speak to the universe, a specific frequency, a specific vibration. And when you hit that frequency, things start to move. Not mystically, not magically, but in a completely practical and measurable way. Marina understood this when she began to observe the patterns. Every time she used the phrase, the correct way, some opportunity appeared within 72 hours. It was as if the universe had a button, and she had learned how to press it. But here comes the part that impresses me most about this story. Marina wasn't special. She had no supernatural gifts, no psychic abilities, no esoteric knowledge, nothing different. She was an ordinary person with ordinary problems, with ordinary fears. The only difference is that she discovered the original method and applied it exactly as Florence taught. No adaptations, no modifications, no modern improvements. Because the truth is this: we complicate everything. Florence Scovel Shinn had discovered something simple. So simple, it seems impossible to work. A 7-word phrase, spoken in a specific way, at a specific frequency, at a specific time of day. And when Marina started doing this, her reality changed. But it wasn't just the money that changed. Everything changed. People started treating her differently. Opportunities started appearing from all sides. Her energy completely shifted. It's as if she had connected to a source of power that had always been there, but she didn't know how to access it. And you know what the most incredible part of this whole story is? This phrase. You've probably heard it before. You may have even said it a few times in your life, but never the right way. Never with the right context. Never with the right frequency. Because no one else knew how Florence really did it until Marina found that lost book with the notes, with the original method, and discovered that Florence wasn't teaching self-help. Florence was teaching applied science. A science that today, 100 years later, we can finally understand. Dr. Masaru Emoto proved that words affect the molecular structure of water, and we are 70% water. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake proved that there is a morphic field that connects all things, and words are a way to access this field. Dr. Greg Braden proved that emotion combined with intention creates a frequency capable of altering physical reality. Florence knew this. Without microscopes. Nope. Without laboratories. Without technology. She knew because she tested it, because she applied it, because she saw the results. And she left it all recorded for those who knew where to look. Marina knew, and in 6 months, her life turned upside down. From a bank account screaming despair to $200,000 in results. And it all started with a 7-word phrase. A phrase that Florence discovered when she was Marina's age. When she was also broke. When she also didn't know what to do anymore. But Florence did something different. Something that changed not only her life, but the lives of thousands of people. She transformed despair into a method. She transformed need into science. She transformed faith into technology. And Marina, 100 years later, rediscovered this secret. Now imagine, if a single phrase can change a life so much, what else did Florence discover that we forgot? What else did she know about how reality works that science is only now beginning to understand? Stop for a second. Take a deep breath. Feel the air entering your lungs. What I'm going to reveal to you now will change everything you've thought about manifestation until now. The phrase by Florence Scovel Shinn. The phrase that Marina discovered in that dusty book. The phrase that attracted $200,000 in 6 months is this: God is my abundant supply now. 7 words. Simple as that. You might be thinking, seriously? That's all? And I understand your reaction. Marina thought the same thing. Because this phrase, you've probably heard it before. Maybe you've even said it a few times in your life. But here's the secret everyone missed. Florence didn't use this phrase as an affirmation. Florence used it as a command. There's a huge difference between the two. When you say an affirmation, you're trying to convince yourself of something. You're fighting against your own mind. When you say a command, you're activating something that already exists. You're accessing a frequency that's already available. Florence discovered this when she realized that certain words in certain combinations created a specific resonance, and this resonance changed the physical reality around her. It wasn't blind faith, it was spiritual engineering. Marina understood this when she found the notes in the margin of the book. Notes that explained exactly how Florence did it. First, Florence chose a specific time of day, 6:17 a.m. Why? Because she discovered that at this time, the brain is at a specific frequency. Between sleep and wakefulness, between the conscious and the subconscious. She tested different times for months. 6:15 didn't work as well. 6:20 lost its power. But 6:17 was the sweet spot, the exact moment where reality becomes more malleable. Neuroscientists today call this the theta state, brain waves between 4 and 8 hertz. This is when the mind is most receptive to reprogramming, when the barriers of the impossible dissolve. Florence didn't know this scientifically, but she knew it experientially. She felt the difference in her body, in her energy, in the universe's response. Second, she spoke the phrase 3 times, always 3 times. Why? Because she discovered that the triple repetition created a superposition of brainwaves, a specific harmony, an energetic crescendo. The first repetition awakened the intention. The second amplified the emotion. The third sealed the manifestation. It was like a symphony in 3 movements, each movement building on the previous one, until creating a frequency that the universe couldn't ignore. It's like tuning a guitar. You need the exact frequency, the exact tension, the exact resonance to create the perfect music. Third, and this is the most important, she spoke each word with a specific emotion. God, with deep reverence. Is, with absolute certainty. My, with complete acceptance. Supply, with anticipatory gratitude. Abundant, with emotional expansion. Now, with total presence. 6 different emotions in 7 words, creating a vibrational symphony. Marina tested this on the first day. She woke up at 6:17 a.m., sat on the bed, took 3 deep breaths, and said, God is my abundant supply now. 3 times, with each emotion, with each intention. And something happened, something she had never felt before. A feeling of expansion in her chest, as if her heart had grown in size, as if she had connected to something much bigger. Florence called it the divine touch. Marina called it a cosmic click. And that same day, at 2:30 p.m., the phone rang. An old client with an urgent project, $800. Coincidence? Marina thought so. But on the second day, it happened again. 6:17 a.m., 3 repetitions, 6 emotions, 7 words. And at 11:45 a.m., an email. A proposal she wasn't expecting. $1,200. On the 3rd day, she started to believe. On the 7th day, she was certain. On the 30th day, she'd earned more money than in the previous 3 months combined. But here's the part that really fascinates me about this story. Marina began to notice it wasn't just the money that was changing. It was everything. People started treating her differently. as if she radiated a different energy. Opportunities started appearing from impossible places. People she hadn't spoken to in years, contacting her with proposals. It was as if she tuned into a frequency that attracted everything she needed. Florence knew this, and she documented it in her personal notes. Scientific prayer doesn't beg, doesn't plead, doesn't implore. It acknowledges, it declares, it activates. Marina found this phrase underlined 3 times in the book, with a note in the margin. This is the secret to everything. And it truly was. Because when you acknowledge that abundance already exists, when you declare that it's already yours, when you activate that frequency, the universe has no choice. It must respond, not through magic, through quantum physics. Dr. Amit Goswami proved that consciousness creates reality. Dr. Dean Radin proved that intention affects matter. Dr. Lynn McTaggart proved that we are all connected by an energetic field. Florence knew this without needing laboratories, without needing proof. She knew because she tested it in her own life, and it worked. In 1925, she was broke, divorced, with 2 children to raise alone. Exactly like Marina, 100 years later. Florence had tried everything. Jobs that didn't work out, relationships that failed, dreams that crumbled. She was an artist. She painted, but nobody bought her paintings. She was a writer. She wrote, but nobody published her texts. Until one night, desperate, she knelt down and asked the universe a question. If you exist, if you love me, show me how to live. And the answer came in the form of a revelation. Not a voice, not a vision, but a deep understanding that abundance wasn't something external. It was something internal. It was a frequency. It was a choice. It was a way of being. By 1927, she was one of the most prosperous women in New York. Her books were bestsellers. Her lectures filled theaters. Her life had been turned upside down, not by luck, not by connections, but by alignment, by discovering the frequency of prosperity, by finding the right words to activate it. What changed? A phrase, a method, a frequency. And Marina, 100 years later, rediscovered this same secret. But Marina did something Florence didn't have the opportunity to do. Marina documented everything, every day, every result, every change, every sensation, every synchronicity. And she discovered patterns that even Florence hadn't noticed. For example, on the days Marina woke up naturally at 6:17 a.m. without an alarm clock, the results were 300% better. Why? Because her body was naturally tuning into the correct frequency. Her internal clock was adjusting to abundance. On the days she felt a specific sensation in her chest during the phrase, something extraordinary happened in the next 24 hours. It was a warm expansion, as if her heart were an inner sun radiating light, as if she were an antenna picking up signals from the universe. On the days that sensation was more intense, the opportunities were more valuable, more surprising, more transformative. It was as if the universe was responding physically, with signals in the body, with energetic confirmations. Florence mentioned this in her notes. The body is the first receiver of divine abundance. And Marina began to understand what that meant. When you are aligned with prosperity, your body knows before your mind. You feel different. You walk differently. You speak differently. And people notice this, even without knowing why. Marina tested this in a personal experiment. She recorded videos of herself before and after starting Florence's method. The difference was startling. Before, she looked tired, discouraged, with a heavy energy. After, she radiated confidence, vitality, a magnetic energy. It was the same person, but on a completely different frequency. And this frequency attracted people, attracted opportunities, attracted money. Not by chance, by resonance. Florence discovered that everything in the universe vibrates, and similar vibration attracts similar vibration. When you vibrate abundance, you attract abundance. When you vibrate scarcity, you attract scarcity. Simple like that, and complex like that. Marina took 6 months to completely master the technique.